All right, guys, I want to do a really quick follow-up review on the Squier Sonic Telecaster. I did do an unboxing video. So as soon as it showed up at my doorstep, I pulled out the camera and did a video unboxing it and did a really quick review of it right there on the spot. But now I've spent a few days with it. It definitely needed a setup. It was kind of difficult to play. I kind of expected that though. I went ahead and did a truss rod adjustment and spent the time with each individual string to make sure I could get the action as low as possible without there being any fret buzz. And I spent some time with it. And I want to give a little follow-up review. Now, for those of you who didn't watch the other video, I'm going to give a short, quick, in a nutshell version of the story behind why I bought this. I'm on a whole new music journey. I've been playing guitar since I was a little kid. Several years ago, I put the guitar down and stopped playing altogether. Now I just recently picked it back up because my wife surprised me with my dream guitar back there. A solid white Gibson Les Paul. And now I am totally immersed back into guitars and music and all that again. And I started thinking, at first I was gonna scour the internet and find all the guitars that I used to have and, you know, start building my old collection back up. Even though I never really had a collection, but I wanted to start my collection to replicate all the guitars that I used to have. And I kind of stopped and I was like, no, wait a minute. I don't want to do that. I don't want to start my journey off like the past. I'll do that later on down the line. For now, I want to start a whole new music journey. So I'm going to get all the guitars that I've never had before. And oddly enough, the Telecaster is a guitar that I've never touched in my life. Mainly because when I was a little kid, I thought they were absolutely hideous. I thought these were the ugliest damn things that anybody ever put strings on and called a guitar. And thinking back, I'm like, why the hell did I think that? They're not ugly, they're pretty cool looking. So I want one, but I've never touched one. So I'm gonna get the cheapest one that I can find just in case I end up hating it. So this here is $200 on Amazon, here in the US at least. So, you know, if you know anything about guitars and you hear somebody say, I got a $200 Amazon guitar, any OG old school guitar player is probably immediately going to think, wow, that's going to be a piece of garbage. And I'm not going to lie, I was kind of wondering about that too. Now, I did watch a lot of reviews on this, and the vast majority of them were really good. There was a few of them that were bad. But I was still kind of like, $200 Amazon guitar. Everybody's opinion is a little bit different. I don't know. Maybe it'll be pretty cool. Anyway, though, I've had this for a few days now. Like I said, did my own little makeshift setup to where it's much more comfortable to play, and I really like this guitar. I really like this guitar. And there's one thing about this that I'm having a hard time reconciling in my mind. Now, again, just for those of you who don't know, I am a Les Paul guy. I'm a Les Paul guy. The Les Paul has my heart. The Gibson Les Paul. Sorry, I know it sounds petty, but when it comes to Les Paul, I am going to be that guy. It has to say Gibson on the headstock. I know it's petty. I know it's stupid. I know it's silly. I get it, but I can't help it. With the Les Paul, it cannot say Epiphone. It cannot say some other knockoff, brand name. It has to say Gibson. I'm that guy with the Les Paul. But I'm not really that guy with any other guitar, especially Fender guitars. So here's the thing that I'm having a hard time reconciling in my mind. I'm a Les Paul guy. This bridge pickup sounds better than my Les Paul. And that pisses me off. See, my Les Paul has EMGs in it. I did not put the EMGs in it. We got it at a pawn shop, and it had EMGs from the pawn shop. And I went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth for weeks as to whether or not I'm gonna strip all that shit out and put humbuckers in it or just leave it. And I went ahead and voted to leave it. I mean, it doesn't sound horrible. It does sound good. And I'm just lazy, and I don't feel like doing all that work. Because when you change out EMGs, you got to change everything out. All of the whole everything, knobs and everything. So I was like, let me just leave it in. It doesn't sound horrible. And then I get this thing. And at least the bridge pickup. I'm not talking about the neck pickup. This thing doesn't really sound that great. But when you switch it over to the bridge pickup, this sounds better than my Les Paul. And that kind of pisses me off a little bit. Man. I'm like, whoa, because, after I ordered this, I started doing a lot of research on Telecasters, and there is a whole Telecaster community that swears up and down that the Telecaster is the most versatile guitar that has ever been created. And honestly, even though I've heard several people say that, I really didn't believe it. I'm thinking, well, yeah, if you're a Telecaster guy, of course you're going to say that about the Telecaster. A Strat guy would probably say the same thing about a Strat. Or a Les Paul guy would probably say the same thing about a Les Paul. So I didn't really honestly believe it all that much until I got this $200 Squier Telecaster on Amazon. And it sounds better than my Les Paul. Now those EMGs got to go. I'm sorry. I think I'm going to put that on my Christmas list. I'm going to tell my wife, hey, I need a set of pickups for on my Christmas list, No, I'm absolutely blown away. Now, when it comes to everything else, the neck isn't, how am I going to word this? It's not bad. It's just not the kind of neck that I prefer. It is just a little bit chunky and a little bit thicker than what I like. I like those thin, slim necks, like in that. Mine has more of the Gibson 60s style necks. That's real thin and slim, and you can just wrap your whole hand around it while you're playing bar chords with your whole hand wrapped around it. That's what I like. This is a little bit thicker than that, but if you don't mind a thicker neck, it does feel very comfortable. Feels very smooth and slick back here. The fretwork, though, is the thing that when somebody does complain about it, usually has to do with the fretwork. Of the few negative reviews that I heard on this, they were all about the same thing, and that was the fretwork. These aren't the worst in the world. A little bit rough, little bit. They're definitely not smooth like a higher end guitar, but they're not the worst that I've felt. I have played guitars that will cut you if you're not careful. So just a tad bit rough, but you really have to feel for it. You really have to put your fingers on it and slide down the neck to feel a little bit of roughness. While you're playing, I don't feel it while I'm playing. You have to actually feel for it. And whatever material the frets are made out of, it doesn't really do it anymore, but when it first came out of the box brand new, you could hear the strings scraping against the fret. And there was this one dude who did a review on the Sonic Telecaster, and he just got the shittiest attitude about that. He was like, oh my God, this is really bad. Oh, it's so horrible. You can hear the strings scraping against the fret. Oh, blah, 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 blah. It's so horrible. It's not that big a deal. It needs to be broken in a little bit. Now, I can't even hear it now. Now that I've been playing the hell out of it for the past few days, and like whatever that is, I guess I just scraped through it, and now I don't even, a little bit on some of the frets. But for the most part, I don't even really hear that all that much anymore. And the nut, that's another little imperfection here. Can you see that where the nut kind of comes over the edge here a little bit? It's flush on this side. It's perfect over here. But on this side, see that? It sticks out just a little bit right there. Nothing that bothers me too bad. I'm blown away. This very well may turn me into a Telecaster guy. Now, no, that does not mean that I'm abandoning the Les Paul. Absolutely not. But I might actually have more than one go-to guitar. I might be one of those guys. The Les Paul and the Telecaster. Because this thing just blows me away. I can't even begin to imagine how a nice $1,700 Telecaster thin line sounds and plays. That's probably amazing. There's only one modification that I kind of want to do to this, and I want to replace the bridge. I'm not a fan of these kind of bridges with all an individual saddle for each string. I don't like that. I like the regular 3-saddle, simple, normal Telecaster bridge. And I found one that is a top-loaded, just like this one, a top-loader. Most Telecasters are string through, so you string it through the back of the body. And obviously this is not a string through. It loads up on the top here. And I went and kind of scoured the internet, and I found a really good bridge that has a lot of really good reviews that is a regular 3-saddle, and it's a string through and a top loader for whatever you need. And it's only 25 bucks on Amazon. So I'm probably going to be doing that whenever I get around to it. Other than that, I really don't have much of a desire to modify this much. Not really. Not really. I really don't. I've been deliberating whether or not to put a fender neck on it. I don't really feel like it needs it that much. I really don't. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm definitely not going to do that. That's on the table as a possibility, but right now I really don't have the desire. The tuners are just they're not Fender tuners, they're just some generic tuners that work beautifully, stays in tune just fine. I'm very impressed with this. I guess I'll put a link in the description of the video, anybody that wants to grab one of these up. So far from my experience, all it needed was a setup. It was a little bit hard to play right out of the box. Not the worst in the world. You know, I've had guitars that the strings are that high off the neck straight out of the box. This wasn't that bad. Wasn't the worst in the world, but it definitely needed a setup. Once you get this thing set up, I'm just blown away with what you can get for $200 brand new in 2024. Because I've had some cheap guitars. I've played some guitars 150, 200 bucks brand new. It doesn't matter. You can set it up all you want. It still is going to play like shit. Horrible electronics, ergonomically, and all the intonation is just so off that there's just nothing you can do to get it to play right and sound right. I don't even understand back in the day how anybody could put strings on a shitty piece of wood like that and sell it as a guitar and sleep at night. But whatever, they've really stepped up their game in 2024. I'm very, very surprised and blown away. So yeah, check it out in the description of the video. I think there's 4 colors if I remember correctly. We got the butterscotch blonde here. There's California blue. I think there's a black one, and if I remember correctly, there's a red one called Torino red, I think. So I'll link it in the description if anybody's interested. Definitely a good beginner guitar. Or maybe if any of you have kids who are looking into getting into it, and you're nervous about spending like a bunch of money on a guitar because you don't know if they're going to stick with it, and you want to just spend a couple $100 on Amazon, highly recommend it. Highly. So yeah, that's about all I got on this, man. If I do any modifications, I will let you guys know. I really want to work on the acoustics so that I can show you how it sounds. I tried to record a video comparing the sound of this and that, but I'm having a hard time getting the acoustics right so that the camera does it justice as to how it really sounds in real life. You know how that's so hard to do? Almost nothing that you try to record or take a picture of does it justice like it is in real life, you know? So I'm working on that. I'm going to try to get that video up if I can get the sound right. But yeah, that's my final thoughts on the Squier Sonic Telecaster. I am very, very shocked and blown away by how much I love this thing. So, all right, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Stay blessed.